Hi, this is your host, Jim, You Never Take Me Anywhere, Love, who has found both a house sitter and a dog sitter and is taking his lovely wife to see a show in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So rather than try to predict the news in advance, I wanted to take this opportunity to do something I've been thinking about for a while. I want to give you some reflections on two recent studies that I've been thinking about and what they indicate about AI. Last week on Project Synapse, our AI show, we talked about a study by the Harvard Business Review in association with a firm called Qualtrics, and it gave the top 100 uses for AI. This information was taken from various forums, and the top 5 uses were revealing: companionship and therapy, organizing my life, finding purpose, enhancing learning, and the only true work-related item was number 5, programming. While the biggest worry related to AI is whether or how it will enhance or replace human workers, it seems that at least the top uses of AI are related to personal use. Now, these are what people say they do. And if you've been doing research for a long time, you'll know there's often a huge gap between what people say they do and what they actually do. So it's hugely interesting that at about the same time, a new study has come out from the National Bureau of Economic Research, based on more than 1 million anonymized ChatGPT conversations between 2024 and 2025. And this might give us the clearest answer yet as to what people are actually doing, because unlike the earlier study, this is monitoring their actual interactions, although they do stress they are anonymized to protect privacy. And the results are a little surprising. Despite what we think, very little was really known about actual usage. The paper documents ChatGPT's growth from its launch in late 2022 to July of this year. After the initial launch, it had 1 million users within 5 days and 100 million users in less than 12 months. In comparison, it took the internet 7 years to get to 100 million users. Today, there are more than 700 million users sending 18 billion messages weekly. Only social media platforms exceed these types of numbers. But remember, the amount of processing for Facebook, Instagram, or social media is minuscule in comparison to a single ChatGPT query. But the usage numbers only tell part of the story. Who is using ChatGPT? Well, early on, users were overwhelmingly male. But by 2025, the gender gap had not only closed, women slightly outnumber men among active users today. And growth is strongest in lower-income countries, not just the wealthy tech hubs. That hints at how widely accessible the technology has become. The researchers used a privacy-preserving automated pipeline to classify messages. What they found was telling. Both work and non-work uses grew, but non-work uses grew faster. In mid-2024, 53% of messages were not related to work. A year later, that had jumped to over 70%. And when people do use ChatGPT at work, it's most often the educated, highly paid professionals. And the dominant task at work? Writing. Everything from drafting and editing emails to producing summaries. There's a great deal of talk about ChatGPT as a search engine replacement, and it has grown enormously. But it's also a generator of digital information. Outside of work, 3 categories dominate in this: practical guidance, seeking information, and of course, writing. Together, they make up nearly 80% of all conversations. Practical guidance means tutoring, teaching, step-by-step help, and it's been steady at about 29% of use. Seeking information, like looking up facts, news, or recipes, has doubled its share in a year. And writing, once over a third of all use, has dropped to about a quarter. Some categories that get a lot of attention in the media turn out to be relatively small in reality, at least for ChatGPT. Computer programming is just 4% of usage. Now, we have to take this with a grain of salt. Other AI models like Claude were much more dominant in programming until recently, when it appears that ChatGPT has been making some inroads. And in the world of work, research seems to indicate that, at least so far, ChatGPT's biggest value comes not from replacing jobs, but from decision support, especially in knowledge-intensive work. Helping professionals make better decisions, helping ordinary people figure out everyday problems, is where the real value lies. So let's contrast that with the other big study, the Qualtrics and Harvard Business Review study led by Mark Sanders. And that survey wasn't limited to ChatGPT. It covered all generative AI. And instead of analyzing conversations, it was looking at forums and finding out what people said about how they used AI. And in that one, companionship and guidance came through as major themes. But the actual data from usage suggests something more grounded, that most ChatGPT use is in everyday decision support and guidance, not companionship and not primarily coding. Both views matter. The survey shows how people perceive they want to be seen using AI, while the usage logs reveal what they actually do when no one's watching. And that's a crucial distinction. If you want to understand the narrative of AI, watch what people talk about. But if you want to measure the economic impact, you have to look at the data. Now, and there's been a big controversy about the economic impact. A recent MIT report actually made the stock market go down when it reported that only 5% of businesses had experienced measurable financial gains. But we're still very early in the application at work, and I think the data shows that. But there is still value being created. If you take consumer value, what people get above what they pay, there are some estimates that say that already ChatGPT is generating somewhere around $100 billion a year in the US alone in terms of consumer value. The MIT study shows there's a long way to go and a lot of time before we might feel the real impact of AI at our workplace. And what will that be? Well, at this point, we have only pure speculation. Some rosy pictures have emerged. Recently, a number of AI executives have talked about a 4-day and maybe even a 3-day work week. Other executives like Elon Musk and Mark Benioff from Salesforce, to name just two, fall more into line with the idea of there are going to be a lot fewer people doing jobs. Musk predicts a rosy future with a guaranteed annual income. But many CEOs like Salesforce's Benioff look at the way they can remove expenses from their bottom line. And some outliers, like Jensen Huang this week from NVIDIA, think that our work lives will become even more busy and stressful as humans try to keep up with the speed of AI and the machines in the workplace. That's our show. Some things to think about. It's going to be an interesting year or two. I'll post a link to these two studies on our show notes at technewsday.com or .ca. You can just go there and check for podcasts. And if you want to tell me what you think, there's the contact us page at technewsday.com. Drop us a note. Love to hear what you think and how you think the next couple of years are going to go. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend.